let's get started. There's not really rules. But I mean, if we can't all be on a single team because I can't buy that many Apple Watches. So, I think try to work in maybe teams of two or probably maximum three, I suppose, depends on what the project is. Why don't we do this? We can go and if you have a project that you want to pitch for working on docs, let's toss this around and you can pitch that and you can come from the doc. From this doc is what I'm referring to. This is what I sent out. You should all be able to find that. And then if you don't have a specific thing you want to work on, then still just raise your hand. We'll toss the mic to you and you can just say your name and what you would be interested in potentially pairing with somebody on. How's that sound? Okay, so yeah, again, there's no rules. You know, who's voting for this? I guess I'll vote for it. So whoever works on the other project, you're not going to get any watches. Sorry. Yeah, that's not true. Maybe I'll still give you a watch. No. So I'm going to work on the process by example. So basically working out what's currently in readme.md of the process and just create a ton of examples that's showing how all the things inside the process are going to be used. And my name's Ben.
Over. So basically, Jason and I gonna work on the first thing is the block.io, the SQL block.io documentation, and I will also commit the patch for the Linux namespace semantics. Right now we don't have too many Linux namespace documentation in our doc. So especially for the pit namespace shareable, those latest semantic changes, we did not document it yet. So we will focus on the namespace and SQL things. And if we come up with more idea, I will update on the doc.
Oh, I mean, basically, okay. Basically, Gilbert said what I wanted to say, so I'm gonna pick up like the SQL block.io isolator documentation and likely put some, you know, like flesh it out and make it better. Yeah.
And you're Jason.
Yeah, Jason from Uber, and I'm working on the unified containerizer effort there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm Joseph from Mesosphere. I plan to be working on a refresh to the modules documentation, which hasn't really changed in seemingly years, but we've definitely been fleshing this modules out, or all of our modules out, and it's actually in a lot of use at the moment, but we don't have any docs to reflect that.
So my name's Andy. I'm going to rewrite the getting started stuff, not the getting started guide that Greg's done a great job on, but right now if you go to getting started, it's build docs. Getting started is not how to build it on 4 different platforms. Getting started should be a table more like the community page, which is just like, hey, you're new to Mesos, here's how you get started doing different things. So that's good. What I'm going to be driving. If you want to join me, I could probably use some help.
Well, Junhan from Mesosphere, but I don't have any thing I wanted to work on. I mean, I probably can work on I see someone list the gRPC client, but it should be just a simple one. Or I can also try to work on the process, but I don't know if I know that well enough. Yeah.
Let's see. So one thing we just talked about was trying to find out examples that we could write in the documentation for using the V1 APIs. Like the actual commands that someone could use with curl. So maybe we will update the V1 API documentation with curl commands that someone can copy and paste to try it out. I also want to update the roadmap doc, something that few people have asked me in the past that we haven't been updating in a while. So I'll probably take this opportunity to update it.
My name is Greg. I work here at Mesosphere, and I'm going to work on updating the HTTP API docs. I've been helping some people consume those APIs recently and found some ways we could improve them. So if anybody else wants to help, let us know.
My name's Ben. I'm gonna probably audit the /help endpoints and make sure that they're documented and we have example requests and responses that we can include there.
Hi, my name is Elia. I'm from Twitter, and I'd like to work on cgroups isolator documentation.
My name is G. I'm going to work on the missing isolator documentations. I think we have a lot of isolator documentation missing. So the main thing I'm going to work on is the file system Linux one and POSIX file system isolator, these two.
Hi, my name is Nolan. I'm pretty new to Mesosphere as an ecosystem, so I was kind of hoping more to focus on the getting started docs. So I think I will join that group over there and just kind of go into it eyes wide open from somebody who has no experience and kind of try to find things that trip me up.
Well, if the Apple guys join, they can say what they're going to do. Yeah, so I take that back about the voting. So actually, when we present sometime between 6 and 7, we will, then everyone will vote. We'll tear up some little sticky notes or something and give each person a little piece, and you can stick it on so everyone can vote, and then we'll do prizes after that. Okay? So thirsty, hungry, there's snacks, dig in. There's coffee or nitro coffee and kombucha and beer and whatever you need. So dig in and yeah, let's do it.
Hi, James. Can you hear us?
Hi, yes. Sorry, it took me a few minutes to find the unmute button, that's all. I did have my head up on your wall, but it looked a bit large.
So we're digging in. I think most people have kind of found groups and teams that they're working on. If everyone can in a doc, if they can sort of put their names next to the thing they're working on, then James, you can either jump in and work with somebody on some, or you could do your own thing. And the plan's basically, we're just going to do this for a couple hours. Then we're going to show people what we did and vote on stuff, and then have some beers and hang out.
Okay, if no one else is going to do it, I can try and get the anchored headings thing in Middleman working.
Can you repeat that?
I could try to do the anchored links to headers. There's a couple of links to Middleman documentation that someone's put.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that'd be great.
Cool, I'll do that.
Sweet.
Hey, guys. Everyone raise your hand if you want dinner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At like 6:30. Okay, raise your hand if you want dinner at 6:30. Leave it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Great, we're ordering pizza. Okay. Is anybody deathly allergic to anything? Vegetarians? Okay.
Hi, everybody. In the doc, there's a HTTP API task around converting existing operator HTTP examples into curl commands. So Colton, my colleague here, is interested in, might be interested in tackling that. So I wonder if whoever put that in there could have a chat.
Vinod?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I can probably Slack you. That's probably better. what's your name in Slack? Are you on?
I'm not on the Slack yet.
Can you join Slack and Slack me? JPitch probably knows my Slack ID.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, James.
Cool. Thanks, Vinod.
Bye.
Can they watch the recording? Okay. All right. So what I did was I basically reorganized the table of contents. Right now there's this big section called running Mesos, and it's got a lot of different stuff in here. It's got things like how to build with CMake. It's got how the agent does like agent recovery. It's got like security stuff in here. Just got a lot of things thrown in there, and then we have advanced features. And it's not clear why some of these things are considered advanced, whereas the other things aren't, you know? So that didn't seem so great either. You know, like, yeah, I don't need to show examples, it's kind of obvious. And then we had some APIs. Running frameworks was just a list of the frameworks that are there. And then for some reason, sandboxes are in there. And developing frameworks, yeah, that was all right, I guess. Modules and contributing's got a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so I reorganized it. Let me make this a little bigger. So I kept the fundamentals section. I had a section for build and installation, which included just the build related stuff here. I put Windows support in there for now, but we might want to, I don't know if it's just build or if it's got more stuff related to Windows support. Then I had a section for administration, which has configuration, how to set up a high availability master or a fault tolerant agent. Then some other stuff that you can do as an administrator, like rate limiting a framework, maintenance, upgrades, logging, monitoring, operational guide. This one's kind of a wild card, how to configure the fetcher cache. Resource management, that was a separate section I called out. How to use attributes and configure the agent resources. How to use resource roles, which includes fair sharing with weights, quotas, reservations, sharing resources amongst roles, oversubscription, security stuff I collected together, which includes secrets as well. Containerization, just got all the containerization related stuff. I wasn't sure about why some things are nested and not, but I just kind of kept what was there. It's got the networking overview, talks about all the networking related docs we have. Storage, just talks about persistent volumes and multiple disks for now, but I think some of these other things like container volumes might be storage related, so we can tweak that later. APIs, so I wanted to call out like the references here as V0 and V1. All the stuff about writing a framework I tried to collect under a bullet here, like, you know, how to design highly available ones, reconciliation, task state reasons, and stuff like that. What else we got? I put the modules in here since it's kind of API related. Community, I've got, so I made this section community now instead, and it's got a link to the community page and then list of users, third-party frameworks and tools, our development roadmap, design docs, and working groups. Under there, there's a contributing section, which is all about, you know, if you want to interact with Jira or write a patch, the style guides we have, testing patterns, committers and how to become one, and code reviews and so on. And then the books, this isn't rendering right, but then there's the books. I didn't know where to put that one, so I left it at the bottom. Yeah, that's it. It's already shipped actually, so the website will get updated within a few hours, I guess.
TOC, right? TOC, table of contents. That's awesome, Ben. That's sweet. It's like high impact. And also it's great that you went first because you probably broke everybody else. So I'm glad it's shipped. All right. Who else wants to go? Andrew, sweet.
Move bar. All right, we're going. Okay, so this is the getting started changes. I'm gonna start by just showing you what the getting started docs currently are. They're not getting started. They're how to build Mesos from source, including system requirements, including two different distributions of Linux, Mac. If you keep, oh no, third distribution of Linux, fourth distribution of Linux. We haven't built yet. Call out to the Windows stuff. Okay, some building instructions and some examples. All right, this is not how you get started with Mesos. If you are totally new to Mesos, what do you need to know? Yeah, well, I try to tell us what we need to know. This is a new getting started one. I modeled it off of the community page, which I really like. This, I think, is well designed. It's short, it's 1 page worth-ish. And I actually copied it and reused the format. Most of this was wrestling with middleman to make it work again. But yeah, this is the new getting started page. Just a basic like call out to a hour-long thing that Ben made on YouTube for how to use Mesos, as well as the white paper that you should probably read. And look, there's no scrolling. Well, there's a little bit of scrolling. There's a little more content I think I want to add to this, but it just gets you going quickly. Like, oh, I am looking to develop Mesos. Cool. Here's that building documentation, which is actually how to build Mesos, not how to get started on Mesos. And also, hey, community, if you're looking at this top bar, you're like, what is that, a forum? This at least tells you go over here for mailing lists and Slack and whatnot. Nolan here is writing a getting familiar tutorial to kind of go over the high level components of Mesos. So we'll have that here as well. And finally, I wanted to call out in a really big major way from the landing page, somebody else's project, Greg's right there. The beginning contribution guide and advanced contribution guide rewrite, because these are great to get further started. Once you've gotten started, you can read these to actually like get patches in. So this, I think, is the new getting started landing page, including links on the side. But now if you click this, you're not overwhelmed. Same problem that we had with the documentation. You're no longer overwhelmed with building everything. You just want to get started. I definitely think this needs a little more, not a ton more content. I don't want to overload it, but if there's anything you think is important for somebody who's getting started with Mesos to know, let me know, Andy. We should add it to this and get it in, because I think this is so much easier to read. So yeah, that's it. And it's called Getting Started if you wanted to vote.
All right, this is good. This is good. All right, who else wants to go? It's a nice follow-up.
As Andy said, my name's Nolan. I'm working kind of on just getting familiar on like kind of a guide. There's a lot of information out there. I think that it should provide a pretty high level overview of here's the kind of pieces, and this is what this part does, this is what that part does. Just if you're familiar with it, you can skip ahead or skip around, but I had kind of tried to focus on usability through the lens of Mesos in 60 minutes, in that here's how you can get started. start dealing with frameworks and everything like that, and just kind of how the pieces all fit together from a little bit more cohesive one in the theme of kind of learning through getting your hands dirty and just deploying like a single master and 2 worker kind of deployment. And then, you know, that hopefully bridges into kind of the more advanced contribution or any of the other further more detailed guides out there of like HA deployments and stuff like that. And abstracting it out so that everything was just under the Apache project. So using, you know, Mesos tech execute and things like that instead of how all the pieces fit together for like Marathon and stuff like that. So just a very high level overview of how to get started in 60 seconds or 60 minutes.
Getting familiar. And if you can't spell that, there it is. All right. Who else wants to go? Chi, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I did is adding like the missing documentation for Mesos containerizer isolators. I think that's part of the work I did during Hackathon, during MesosCon this year. So I kind of refactored this entire doc into like a kind of make that an index TOC file and have a link to the corresponding documentation for each isolators. And I think we still have a lot of missing isolator documentation. So this part of this Docathon just adding like some of the missing C groups and file system isolator documentation. So what I did is I add a documentation for file system isolators inside Mesos containerizer, like what's the relationship between these two and what it does. And we have like 2 right now, POSIX Linux, and kind of call out the limitations and what it's used for, because people don't understand what that is usually. So that's one thing I did. The other one I did is C group devices. So that there's another one that we did the work but didn't finish the documentation. So so this one specifically, you have some default whitelist devices, which is not called out in any of the documentation. It's inside the code, so I make it part of the documentation. Like if you turn on these isolators, you have those default whitelisted devices that you can use in your container. And also there's an agent flag that you can config to add additional devices you want to enable, like rewrite, make note. Yeah, I think like these kind of features are kind of missing previously. I mean, it's not missing, like we did the job, but we didn't actually write the documentation and people don't know how to use that. So yeah, just adding those missing documentations. Yeah, I think there are many, like I think Ilya and Gilbert are also working on the isolator doc. Yeah.
Yeah, my part was adding documentation for CPU C groups isolator. How do I share my screen? Okay. Yeah, so this documentation didn't exist before, and I did some explanation what C groups subsystems this isolator uses, what do they do, some limitations or effects of using those subsystems on the application, provide information on what statistics is exported by this isolator and how, well, what it shows, and of course configuration, because you have to know how to use it. Yeah.
Let me share the screen first. Okay. Uh, for guys who don't know me yet, I'm Gilbert. So basically, I work with Jason, and Jason left, so I'm gonna cover his part. So we add Jason add the isolated dark for SQL block IO subsystem. So basically, yeah, we added this for Mesos 1.4, but we did not document it yet, and in this documentation we add the yeah, so basically we add the motivation of the SQL block IO subsystem, and then we link it to the Linux kernel dark for like what cases the SQL block IO user may need it. And then basically it is divided into two parts. The first part is the statistic, SQL block IO statistic. The other part is the control part, which we did not support it yet. And so we just mentioned it here. And then this is a sample block IO stat user might be interested with. And then that's it. So, but I also have some other documentation for the namespace. So we did not document any Linux namespace semantics in Mesos before. So I just add a table under the Linux launcher to introduce the 7 Linux namespaces we are in Mesos. And apart from the user namespace, we did not support yet, and all the others we already supported on Mesos. And we have different semantics for top level container and the nested container. So this is just a table on like what namespace we define it as a shareable. And for example, like mount space, it will never be shared. And we also have some future plan. For example, the IPC and C group namespace, we're gonna change the behavior in the future. So we just leave it as a to be determined in the documentation. So this is something we figure out together with GM, we know, and Gaston earlier in the meeting, but we just don't have any documentation for that yet. So it's good to capture. And so there's another thing. Oh, this is another pin namespace. We make pin namespace configurable like a couple months ago, but we just did not document it. So we have the agent flag and the protobuf API to control it. So I just add those documentation. And the last one we did, it is the nested container documentation, and then how to make the nested, how to make an isolator nested aware, because right now we have a lot of isolator which G listed in his doc, but we did not have any information about like whether or not this isolator is nested aware. So we just have another table to introduce all the isolator and what's their behavior to nested container specific. And yeah, all the patch are already merged except the last one. So you guys might be able to see it soon.
All right, so do we want to call those 3 things? Which we call them G, Ilya, and Gilbert? All right, good. Well, I think we're going to split it up because that's a lot of watches. All right, who else wants to go? Greg, sweet.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Oh, hey, Gilbert, could you stop sharing your screen? I think you have to maybe. Sweet, thank you. And there we are. So something that I had in play already before the Docathon today is what Andy mentioned earlier, this update for our contributors guide. So the main thing we're doing here is splitting our contributor guide into two different guides. We have a beginner first-time guide for people who have never contributed to Mesos. Maybe they really just want to reach in and make a little bug fix or a documentation change and move on. So the beginner guide is all about making PRs on GitHub. So it really just tells you if you want to propose a change, you can open a PR against our public GitHub mirror. And then it has a little bit of information about like links to getting started, links to the committers page if you want to get in touch with the committer, how to find Mesos Slack. So a little help, like if you need to contact people, find some guidelines. And yeah, you know, how to open a PR if you're not familiar with that. And then just a little bit of information about Jira. Some of the labels that are really useful for new contributors. And then, so I spent just a little time looking at this with Vinod today. And one of the things that he recommended, and also Andy, when I was looking at it with him, I think it totally makes sense, is that we'll just move everything below this first Jira section. We'll move all the rest of this and just merge it with the advanced contributor guide. So we're going to end up with a really concise little beginner's contributor guide that's just like 1 page long. Here's how to open a PR if you want. No big deal. And then the advanced contributor guide is what we currently call our submitting a patch page. And so this is the full song and dance about, you know, if you want to get involved in the Mesos community and day-to-day activities, contribute some more complex code, here are all the accounts that you need, everything you need to do. So this is mostly the same as our current submitting a patch page, and then I'll merge in that extra stuff from the beginner's guide. So this was mostly stuff that I had done earlier, and then for today, I wanted to dig in a little bit into the HTTP API. So I took a look at, so I've been working with some folks who are consuming these HTTP APIs lately, and so I look at the docs with them and I see things here and there that we could improve. So one of the things I wanted to improve in these scheduler HTTP API docs was adding some information about offer operations. We didn't really explain previously with the accept call info what offer operations are out there, what they're used for. So I went ahead and added some info for launch group, and then link to the reservation documentation and persistent volume documentation here. We can add the new operations when those get fleshed out a bit. And then I went through this file and also just updated some formatting, made it a little more consistent here and there. And yeah, that's it.
Well, why don't we call it well, it's tough because you did multiple things. We'll call it Greg. Greg's good. Okay. All right. You want to show the stuff you did? Okay, Joseph, you ready? Okay, he's got Zoom ready, so.
Let's see, how do I move this out of the way? All right, so this is a view of the current page of Mesos modules and what it looks like currently. So we have quite a few things on this page that are in various states of disrepair. We have a disclaimer that's saying like you shouldn't use modules at all, even though we've got like tens of modules now in use in DCOS. And it also has a blurb of Mesos modules, which actually isn't so accurate anymore. Like it states, it's easy to use, it's easy to extend, it's easy to do things, and you don't need internal information about Mesos to get modules to work. That's completely untrue. It's like the opposite of what we should be saying. We should be cautioning people that this is actually kind of dangerous, and you kind of have to know what you're doing before you do it. Okay, so we also have a bunch of things where we have examples, and this stuff is kind of good. It's nice to have. And we've got this little blurb about library names, which should actually be in code documentation, and it shouldn't be here. Like we have a JSON schema or a protobuf schema where we actually describe how we load libraries in, and this should just go in there. And then we have this list, this giant list of allocator and anonymous module and authentication module and hook module and isolator module and all the modules that we have. It's not even a complete list. And then we have a very short section about writing modules and some versioning stuff. So what I did is, first of all, I reworded a bunch of the disclaimers and the explanation of Mesos modules. And secondly, I took the list of all the modules and instead made them links to the documentation page that either implements, describes, or otherwise talks about the feature that the module is affecting. So these links are actually broken because of this bug here that we'll have to fix. Yeah, they point to, like the allocator points to the allocation module page, which talks about the allocation module. This one actually doesn't exist yet. We don't have a page on hooks or the anonymous module or even the master contender and detector parts. Like authenticator and HTTP authenticatees and all that stuff goes to the authentication markdown page. We have references to modules scattered all over the place. And it may or may not help us to gather that up into a series of more concise documentation. But that's not exactly what I did here because, well, didn't quite have enough time to rewrite every single one of those docs. Okay, so now this page looks like it's got some examples. It's got how to write a module to begin with, how to build one, and then a bit of stuff about the versioning. And then if you wanted to go in and write a specific module, you'd go and click on one of these pages to see what does this feature do, and then what the interface looks like. And that's it. All right. Okay.
So I was working on like the process readme.md, and well, it's just an introduction to how to write code in the process. And before, previously our MDR like filled with a lot of actual implementation code, I think, like AC process. Oh yeah, these are examples, but we well, want to have some easier example that when we want to under some circumstances, like under some use case, how do we use the process to handle that? So I come up with like 3 examples. The first one is, well, I chose this because I'm not good at writing docs, so I decided to write code. So the first one is the retry loop that we like probably use a couple of places. So, and I'm just come up with the example using a loop, and that I allow exponential backup, that I use a mutable lambda here. So it's also an example about how to use multiple lambda to achieve that maintain status in a loop, and retry it. And the second example also loop. I love loop. So, so I have another example that I write like a function that we pass in a pipe reader, and then return a pipe writer that will like uppercase everything. So it's again using a loop, but the different again I heavily use a lot of mutable thing because I need to make this pass this writer and reader. And the difference between these 2 loops is the first loop I break in the body, and the second loop I break in before next iteration. And then I have a super mini example about how to use repair, which like we are all familiar with then, but some may not be that familiar with repair. And so I have like 2 implementation about how we use promise to try to fix something when we see unfail on a feature.
and how to use repair to do the same thing within a line.
Okay. So, yeah, and so Chun and I basically, why don't you, can you stop sharing for a sec? So we basically came up with a large list of all the things we wanted to document. And then we broke it up and let's see. This was our large list. And I took the first one, and he took these ones, and we have a lot to do. It goes on to the next page. There's really a lot to document. So turns out documentation is very, very hard. I did not get very far in this, but I'll show you what I did do. Yeah, so we kind of wanted to have this sort of by example feel. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. So I tried to do a building an HTTP service. So showing how you can use route, and then how there's different responses that exist that can make your life easier, or you can specify your own response and set the headers, override things like content type, how you can, we have a specific call out for JSON responses, what you can do with HTTP requests, like check their method, you have to do that manually, or specifically look for path parameters, which is how we do our path parameter parsing, which is not actually done. This example is not done. And I had barely gotten to even using route within the actors themselves. So there's a lot that still needs to be done, but that's it. But it's a good start, and we've got a lot to do. Good thing I have some flights coming up. Okay, sweet. So good, yeah. Good. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, so that's right. So he did, which is great. So we'll call that anchors. If you want to go over that one. Yeah, it is great. Did he commit it? Okay, so yeah, now we will, whoever is interested in voting, please write on the 3 pads I gave you, put them back together, hand them to me. I will tally them up, and go ahead, Greg. If you need a pen, we have pens. And then we'll tally them up, and whoever wins, I'll ask them what they want their prize to be. And then we'll go from there. But this is great. I mean, this is the first one first of these Docathons we tried to do. I'm super stoked that we came out. We'll do a ton more. There's other things we want to do as well, like hackathons and other things. So we're just getting it going. This, perfect. Yeah. Good. All right. So, has everyone voted? Voting? Pens down, heads up. Just kidding. Oh, God, that brings back nightmares. Do you need a pen? Oh, you voted. Perfect. Voted. And then everyone's welcome to hang out and continue to write documentation or drink beer or go home. But yeah, let me count these up and we'll go from there. With an overwhelming number of votes, the TOC won. Well done, Ben. Woo! All right, so you get to pick your prize. The third one that Judith suggested was a San Francisco helicopter tour. We can talk about it whenever, but yeah, sweet. This is awesome. I'm so glad that we started this and did this. We'll do more. Yeah, maybe we'll do a quarterly Docathon. Maybe not every month. That seems like a lot, but maybe we'll do a quarterly Docathon. So we'll get to do a couple a year. And I mean, God, it's 4 trips to San Francisco. It's pretty good, right? Maybe we'll try to do like a quarterly Docathon, quarterly hackathon. That's 8 trips to San Francisco. Hey, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, sweet. Yeah, people can say however long they want. We got pizza, beer, wine, and if the last Mesosphere person that's here just has to let the last non-Mesosphere person out. Otherwise, yeah, stay as long as you want. I'm gonna keep writing some docs. Cool. You got that at the last Docathon, didn't you? Or hackathon, yeah. Sweet. Thanks, guys.